Hey guys, Ike here from IkesOutdoors.com. I'm here today to answer a question that I get quite a bit. This came from a guy named Darren Volp on Facebook. I hope I'm saying that last name right. Was out of town on vacation, just got back, Darren, so the easiest way for me to answer this for him and for everybody else is to do a video on it. It's just too complicated to answer through email, and I hate to type. So the question is when you're shooting from a tree stand, do you need to move your sight pin up? This is a pretty common misconception that you need to move your sight pin up, and I guess in a way you can, but you don't really need to. What happens is when you're shooting from a tree stand, your angle of your arrow changes. I've got a deer down here in front of me, okay, that if I'm going to shoot this thing from the ground, the angle is going to be flat. It's pretty much going to be parallel with the ground. What happens if I'm shooting out of a tree stand is the angle changes up like this. And the reason why you need to shoot high out of a tree stand, your point of impact is still going to be the same. If you're shooting on the ground and you aim for right here, you're going to hit right here. If you're shooting out of a tree stand, you aim for right here, you're pretty much going to hit right here. What happens is the exit wound is now different. So when you're on the ground, you're shooting here, this is going to be a great shot. But when you're shooting out of a tree stand, if you get it too high of an angle, your exit wound may not be ideal. So what will happen is, especially the closer a deer gets, your point of impact will stay the same, but because the angle has changed so much, especially if you get one that's really, really close, you have to aim higher up on the body. So your arrow is not necessarily hitting higher, but you're aiming higher. And the reason that you're aiming higher doesn't have anything to do with the tree stand. It has to do with the angle of your arrow. As this deer gets further and further out there, your arrow is going to be a little bit flatter, and you can aim a little bit more true. And you can aim a little bit more down into the body. But say this deer was, right under your tree stand. Your arrow is going to be angled like that. Say 5 yards. You're going to have to move down the body a little bit, and you're going to be here. Say 10 yards there, 20 yards here, 30 yards, 40 yards, so on. And those angles are completely made up. But that's what changes. Is it's not the point of impact is not changing. You're still hitting the same spot, but the angle of your arrow now is more evident. Is at a downward angle, and that's going to cause your exit hole to be lower in the body if you don't aim higher. Basically, if you aim up here, you're going to get both lungs, hopefully the heart. If you aim for your same spot down here at this angle, you may only get one lung. If you're lucky, you could come in here and even hit a rib, and it could deflect the arrow down, and you may not even get into a lung. So your point of aim and your point of impact is still going to be the same, but you're having to raise your sight pin up onto the deer to compensate for the angle of your arrow. And I don't. Some people, if you're going to be a strict tree stand hunter, maybe you do it. I don't recommend it. I don't do it. I've hunted for 23 years, almost entirely out of tree stands in the Midwest, and I don't do it. When I aim for an animal, I just move the angle of my impact, or I move my pin up higher on the deer to compensate for the angle. That's what I've always done. I don't move my sight pins. I just leave them exactly the same way they are off the ground. The other reason I don't move my sight pins is because sometimes I do end up hunting off the ground. If you're a guy who's going to hunt out of a ground blind and then hunt out of a tree stand, or like me, I just hunt on the ground sometimes with no ground blind or nothing, and just go out and hunt, then you don't want to change your sights. Your sights are going to be messed up on the ground at that point if you raise them up to compensate for hunting out of a tree stand. So, especially, and then the thing is too, is if you raise your sight pin up to compensate for the tree stand, the angle changes, and the spot. If this deer's right in front of me, then I want that arrow to come through here. If he's out there a little further, like I said, I want to aim down. I'm losing my deer. I want to aim down a little further down on the body. So for each yard, 10, 20, 30, whatever, the angle is going to be the same. I'm not going to aim in the same spot every time. I don't want it 4 inches high every time. So for me, I keep my sight pins dead on, off the ground, and out of a tree stand, depending on the angle of the deer, the angle of the shot. That's when I make I compensate for it there. And I'd love to say that it's never went wrong for me, that I've been perfect on it every time, but there's been times when I haven't got the angle right, really up close. It doesn't sound like it'd be a tough shot to make, but there are times when a deer directly underneath you can be harder than a deer at 40 yards. It's a tough shot to make, and one that a lot of people do not practice. The best thing I think you can do is get you a 3D deer, get in a tree stand, and then you'll start to learn these angles. Don't just get it on the ground and shoot and then climb up in a tree stand and you're good to go. If you can and you have access to it, get in a tree stand. Like me, I ain't got a tree place that I can put a tree stand, but I can shoot off my back porch basically, or I can go to a buddy's house and I can shoot off of their back porch, or heck, I can go out to a buddy's house and put a tree stand up and shoot that way. That is an excellent way. That is an excellent way to learn the different yardages. Shoot from 20, shoot from 30, shoot up close. Definitely shoot up close. You'd be surprised. Sometimes a deer will get right underneath your stand, and that is a surprisingly hard shot. So, Darren, I hope that answers your question. And for you other guys out there that are kind of wondering about changing your sight pins for tree stand, I don't recommend it. I just recommend practicing out of a tree stand. Leave your sight pins alone. The same way you shoot them off the ground, and when you get into a tree stand, just practice it, and when you come to that situation where the deer is at different yardages, you'll know where you're supposed to aim. Remember, the entry hole is not as important. The entry hole is important, but not as important as the exit hole. Just like if this deer was quartering drastically away from you, where are you going to shoot this deer? You're going to shoot him in the gut. So your entry point is not going to be quite as important as your exit hole. If this deer was broadside, you'd never shoot him in the gut. But because he's angling far away from you now, you want that arrow to come through right there. That way you can hit the diaphragm, hopefully both lungs, and maybe even the heart. You want that good quartering away shot to enter in the lungs, because your entry shot isn't what's important. It's your exit shot. Your exit shot and his front shoulder, your exit hole in his front shoulder, is what's going to make or break your shot. If you take that shot, that hard angle, and you shoot him up here, you're going to end up getting that. If you shoot him in the chest cavity, you're going to end up maybe getting one lung. So, your entry point is important, but not as important as your exit hole. Sometimes you aim for the gut, and sometimes you aim for the backstrap to make a good shot, because your exit hole will be what counts. So, for product reviews, how-to videos, be sure to check out our website, ikesoutdoors.com. If you got questions, be sure to check us out on Facebook under Ike's Outdoors. Please like, please subscribe, and please share these videos, and I really appreciate you guys watching.